In May of 2012, my husband and I found out that we were expecting our first child. When we were able to, we found out that we were having a little boy, and we decided to name him Aiden. You know, it was all about getting to know him, his kicks and his movements, and, you know, the food that he seemed to like, and, you know, it was just all the excitement of preparing for this baby. And one of my closest friends, she was also expecting a little boy, and I had agreed to go to the hospital and take pictures of the delivery. It was just such a surreal, like, just everything I'd imagined, beautiful moment. Like when they put him on her chest, it was just this little miracle, this bringing life into the world, and I was so excited to experience it for myself. My due date was February 5th, and 4 days past my due date, we went into the hospital to have him. At one point during the contractions, Aiden had a few decels, so decelerations with his heart rate. So they decided to call the NICU team in just to be there for the delivery, you know, just in case. You know, I didn't really, at that point, think anything of it. I was just like, you know, great, they'll be there and, you know, everything's gonna be fine. At 2:33, Aiden came into the world, and it was the most amazing moment. I mean, hearing your child for the first time, and I remembered my husband David and I were just crying, you know, just these happy, joyous tears. They didn't let me hold him right away because the NICU team wanted to take him to the side of the room and make sure that he was doing okay. And then as, you know, the minutes went by, we started hearing his cries getting quieter and quieter. And my husband says he remembers looking over and seeing, you know, they were using their fingers to hold his little hands, and he would grip on and hold, and then gradually, you know, his little hand would just fall limp. The NICU team decided to take him to the NICU, you know, right away to find out what was going on. And I don't know at what point the doctor came in, but it was at least an hour or two later. He sat us down, and he told us that they found out that Aiden had a heart defect. I just kind of shut down. It was like one of those moments where like the sounds in the room just get muffled, and like I couldn't hear anything else he was saying. It was just, how can this be happening? Aiden had to be transferred to another hospital to have a procedure done. So my husband, he followed the ambulance to the other hospital, and I had to stay until I could get discharged. You know, we were all in that mode of just like, you know, let's do whatever has to be done to help Aiden. And so we finally got to their NICU, and they wheeled me in, and I just remember seeing David, and as soon as I saw David's face, I mean, I knew, and I remember I just started screaming, no. They took us into a room where the doctor came in, and he said that they were able to do the septostomy procedure, and Aiden made it through the procedure, but about 8 minutes after, his heart was just so weak, and he couldn't make it. I got to hold him finally the first time, and he looked so peaceful. He just looked like he was sleeping. We got to spend a few hours with him, trying to memorize every feature on his face and, you know, who he looked like, trying to fit like a whole lifetime of love into, you know, a few hours. At a certain point, it was time to say goodbye, and leaving him there, you know, I had to give him away to a stranger and walk away for the last time, and that was the hardest thing I've ever had to do. So the weeks and months following Aiden's death, we were just overcome with grief. My heart was in a million pieces, and I didn't see any way that we could ever move on, experience joy again. I felt like I just really wanted to, I wanted to fall asleep and not wake up. Going through something so tragic, I think a lot of us, and I know I did, I think a lot of us, you know, ask those questions, especially of God. You know, you're supposed to love me, And you stood by and let my son die, you know? We saw our friends, you know, take their healthy babies home, and we just felt like we were the only ones experiencing this kind of pain. Aiden, we knew, was irreplaceable. No one could ever replace him. But we knew that we still wanted to be parents, and we started praying for another baby. But I remember specifically praying that if God allowed us to get pregnant, I prayed that it would only happen if it was a baby that we could take home. And about 3 months later, 3 months after Aiden passed away, we found out that I was pregnant again. You know, it was really scary, but we had something to hope for again. We had that little spark of joy. 7 weeks into the pregnancy, I lost the baby. I felt abandoned. How could God now, after we had been through so much, how could He allow us to experience loss again on top of losing Aiden? It was a long time for me. It took a while. It was not anything that was, you know, instantaneous or overnight. It was through a lot of people, even strangers, coming to us and sharing with us that they had had similar loss. And that was so valuable to me and my husband, because we could see people right in front of us who had endured what we were going through and actually come out on the other side with their beliefs intact. I finally got to this place where I felt God never told us that we wouldn't experience suffering. And He actually says in the Bible, you will have trouble. It doesn't say you might, it says you will. And He goes on to say, but take heart, I have overcome the world. God also calls us to become like little children. And we know that having faith is such a huge part of our Christian journey. Even though I don't have answers to all my questions, and even though I might not have the mental capacity to even understand everything, just like little kids, our children don't understand everything that the parents do, they still choose to trust in their parents because they know that their parents love them more than anything in the world and would never do anything to intentionally hurt them. So all the pain and the suffering here in this world, it's not God. It's the furthest thing from what God had planned for us originally. There are gifts that come out of tragedy, and one of those for me was empathy and compassion and being able to relate to other people who are going through something like this. Grief is so alienating, and you feel so alone, and you feel so forgotten, and I don't want his story just to be a story of pain and suffering and grief, and in there I want it to be a story of hope. David and I have been really fortunate to be able to have 3 more boys. We have Josiah, Ethan, and Levi, and they're 6, 4, and 2. We've been really intentional about keeping Aiden part of the family in every way that we can. So all our boys know that they have another brother. If anyone asks them, you know, how many brothers do you have, they always include Aiden in that. And they know that someday they're gonna meet him and maybe help raise Aiden. I just can't wait to see them with him someday. It's what I'm living for.